It's time for The King and the Cop with the legendary former MLB great Jim Leyritz. And with 100 years of law enforcement in his blood, Tommy Sedner. It's all things sports, plus cop talk, current events, entertainment, and more. Joined by America's favorite Jersey girl, Robin DeLory. It's The King and the Cop.
Welcome to The King and the Cop. It's January 9th. More importantly, it's National Law Enforcement Day. But you know what? It's our first day back. We've been on a vacation for
It's a great day to
3
come
weeks.
back.
But I refuse to come back before this day because Blue Lives Matter, and that's what we're going to prove tonight.
We're a blue family,
We're
my
a blue
friend.
family. Florham Park, you got your dad's jacket on tonight.
It's a little big, and my brother said I look ridiculous.
I
but
wouldn't be able to get my arm in my sleeve of my father's or my jacket.
I'm
Probably
just
at this
so
point.
happy I have it.
I am kicking off this new year with you. The King, Mr. Leyritz, is home with a house full in California watching TCU play Georgia. I don't know the score yet because his daughter goes to TCU, but Jimmy's a big supporter of law enforcement. He does a lot of foundation work for law enforcement with us and has for the last 20 years with me. But tonight, speaking of that game, which is an important game, it's the final college game.
Tommy, I just have to say, I'm so
You're going to
happy.
cut me off in 23 like you did
Yeah,
in
no,
22?
I'm so happy to be here for National Law Enforcement Day.
Yeah.
But I don't care about the game.
No, I was just telling the audience why Jimmy's not here.
Oh, okay.
So Jimmy's not here because he's watching a football game. But, for starters, before I bring everybody on, we have some special people that are close to us in our life. And their fathers were close or their brothers are close. But there's so many troopers in New Jersey and Newark cops families, from the Donnellans to the Posts to the Golden family to the Gavin family to the Inio family, fathers and sons, and the D'Amicos with my favorite trooper, Devin D'Amico, New Jersey State Trooper, who's already lighting it up, and the colonel's presenting her with awards.
Your family.
My family, and my favorite, my hero, my brother, the superintendent of Port Authority Police, former colonel of the New Jersey State Police.
Why didn't we ask him to be on the show today?
He never comes on. He says he speaks too much to the real TV shows. But before we start, for our listeners, my dad, there's 100 years in law enforcement, great-grandfather, father. My brother's son is a trooper now. My brother, my mother's brother, my sister married a trooper, and your dad, Florham Park, New Jersey cop. We're married. We got blue blood. Probably any of our kids will be cops, but I would love them.
know.
Maybe my grandson. We'll throw a picture of him up, Maxie boy, if his mother lets him. But tonight, it's about our guest. And our guests represent all New Jersey State Police, Newark Police, and we have a very special guest who will probably listen because he's a great listener. He's a decorated former LA sheriff, veteran in foreign countries, fought for our country as a law enforcement officer, and now he is the founder and spirit of the Law Enforcement Ministries, and we're proud to be part of that with our brother Ricky Jones. And he will be on with us. You'll see him, and he can please interrupt our way in, but around 10:40 or so, we're going to tell you what we're doing with the ministries. But for now, without further ado, I'm going to start with I'll get a little emotional probably tonight. My man, John Avallone, former South Brunswick cop. I know him since he's a little kid because his father was my partner. And his father passed suddenly a couple years ago, unexpectedly. Robin, I don't know that you ever seen me more shook up. I mean, it was.
So I'm honored to meet you, but I want to tell you, I feel like I've already known you and have met your father through the stories and the beautiful stories, because if anybody could tell a story, it's this man right here. The details and the love and the passion that went behind the stories he tells every single time he talks about your father. And it's not just once a year on a birthday, or it's once a week.
It's
easy.
I can't shake him, and I know he's here tonight with
Tommy,
me.
I can't see. Is that a picture that I excuse me, but we tried to put a lot of meaningful things together right now.
Why we got John Robbins right, and here is the aforementioned. There is the great Bobby Avallone, Marine, probably one of the toughest men I ever met in my life. Ricky, you would appreciate him. I know you know stories. And our other partner, Jay DuPont. These guys were legend. as far as I'm concerned, we're the most decorated and best cops in the city. And here's where nepotism came into play. My father made sure that when I went to the narcotics squad, I was safe and I was working with the best. So he put me with Bobby Avalone, Jay DuPont, and Jerry Knapp, who is also with us tonight.
And you are always on the phone. Look at that.
And I'm still on the phone, working that phone. But and then we got my man Chris, retired captain from Newark PD, Emergency Services. He's Juvo's kid, Chris. You're Juvo's kid.
47 years old, and I still get called Juvo's kid. But I wear it as a badge of honor like the rest of the children of law enforcement here.
Well, thank you for your father. And I got to search for a picture, put a picture up of your father because I found one of him. Well, here's Chris and his family. Handsome Chris, captain.
Beautiful family.
I know how proud your dad is and your beautiful children.
Thank you.
I found a picture of your dad. Here's another one of you and your dad, which, I mean, I know he couldn't be any prouder than you. He was such a proud man when you went on the job. We used to leave the narcotics squad, Nap, and we used to go watch him play basketball when he was in high school. Lieutenant would ask us where we were. We were out of town. We were watching Chris's basketball game.
He was living his homicide days in that suit he had on there.
Well, let's put the last one up. I don't know if he's with the Sopranos or I don't know what he is, but that's Chris on the left with Louis and great Keith Shepard, who is now been in charge of security for Newark's own, whose father was a Newark cop, Lance Owens. The great Keith Shepard also in that picture.
I'm rewatching Boardwalk Empire, and that looks like it could be straight out of Nookie.
He's Nookie.
You know, I'm not going to hear the end of this if you keep praising him.
Yeah, no, he's the best.
We have some more, but
we'll come back and forth. Okay. But then I go to
this is Chris too, right?
No, where is Chris? You got another one of Chris? All right. Well, yeah. One of my favorite. You know, I said this, and you guys all appreciate this. My father said his favorite thing when he became a sergeant was just getting saluted, and he loved to salute. And you know, Jerry, we went to the superior officers' Christmas party, and you know, we miss the old timers, man. And I know guys like us and Chris, we still throw them a salute. We throw them a highball if we see them, and they love that. You know, they were guys that were in the war. That meant that was the honor to them, and I thought this was a great picture.
That's a beautiful picture,
a great
by
picture,
the way.
Chris. And,
Thank you.
And
I have a question, just from a layman's perspective. I always wondered about police officers and their animals, right? The canine, because I'm such an animal lover, and I was wondering, as you move through the ranks. Do you miss does it work like that? Do you get taken away from, the partner, even if it's an animal, it becomes your partner?
Well, I guess you would say, Chris, a lot of guys elected. I know my classmate and my golf partner and Richie Miller, he never wanted to leave the horses. So he never wanted to be promoted because he didn't want to lose that detail. So
did you enjoy that time in your life?
In my 25 years, I was fortunate enough to get into the mounted squad as a lieutenant. So I was up high in the rank already running the command. And I went through the 12-week training and I fell in love with the horse. Even to this day now, once I'm retired, I still ride socially and practice all the time. And you become one with the animal. It's like the canine units with the handlers. It becomes part of your family. My kids would come to the barn and we'd feed it all the time. I'd groom it on my days off. I still go back and visit it. It's just something, it's just a natural bond that forms because you put in so much work and time and you see this majestic creature and the dynamic of being in the inner city and you have such a beautiful horse. You're sitting on the horse, but you're looking out at projects or graffiti ridden buildings. And it's just it makes you so lucky to realize that Newark is one of the only mounted squads left in the state of New Jersey. And to be a part of it was a great honor. To this day, if you look behind me, you'll see that was made for me when I retired with the horse in the picture. Aww. And it says estimated start time, 1891. So we've been around with a long history and a long tradition. So I was grateful. And you speak about nepotism, but because of my father, I was able to get into a lot of these units and share in this pride and tradition of the Newark Police Department. So yes, it's like having a pet, but it becomes part of your family.
Absolutely.
Great picture. So, my partner, and I shouldn't be leaving Roe for last, but I will because there's a special reason for that. But my partner, Jerry Knapp, who is going to be November of this year, will be voted in as the next sheriff of Union County Sheriff because he can't get enough after 30-something years because his daughter, who I posted a picture of her.
Okay.
Let's put a picture of her up. I think this is classic Aunt Ro. I refer to you as Aunt Ro always. That you can't appreciate this picture anymore.
This is a cool
than
picture.
a girl that I always said is not a girl, is a police officer because they have more you-know-whats than most guys. And this picture, when we bring it up, will, right there, you went past it. I don't know. I danced with her on her wedding day, Jared, and then she goes and puts that on and crashes through a door. Undercover DEA. Thank God she came home. Now she's with Essex County Prosecutor's Office back in our backyard. Your son, still Essex County Sheriff. Your son-in-law, Homeland Security. You, over 30 years, Newark PD. And now you're going to run for sheriff, and you're going to be the sheriff of Union County in the Republican Party. We had you on earlier. We announced it. Jared, you know, I know I've had talks with my dad. He would have never shown it. One of the questions, I had talks with Bobby when John went on a job, when Chris went on a job, Jubal as a father. How's it feel? You don't care about yourself. You're going through doors. Ricky, also, I'm going to introduce his daughters with LAPD. How's it feel? I know Ro's going to slap me for this, but when it's your daughter out there.
Well, I felt very proud of her. There's my whole team there.
That's your team.
Very proud of my daughter, what she did in her DEA days. And I remember one of the instructors told me when I went to Quantico for a graduation, he said to me, "There's one person I go to a door with, and I want your daughter right next to me." So it made me feel pretty good. Of course, I worry about her. Of course, we worry about my sons. You do too. And but you just gotta, have faith and let them do their job the way they want to do it. And
you let me perfect because I went through many a door with all of you knowing that you all went through many a door. And I remember my mom telling me when females were allowed to come on the job, how so many wives were upset and discouraged about it, blah, blah, blah. Years later, everybody got educated. But this girl, my sister, my blood, Roseanne Manghese, the first female class, I want to say in the United States, of the New Jersey State Police, went on to run the New Jersey State Police as chief of staff. Jerry, for your old boss, our old boss, Joe Santiago.
Yeah. I
ran through doors with this woman, and there she is with former police chief director Anthony Ambrose and myself. We were, and
I love this picture.
This is perfect. Her father, the chief, who was a Newark legend, Marine also. Her family, her nephew, her cousin. This is the blue bloods we're talking about, New Jersey blue bloods. And Ro was the one who took my brother under his wing when he was a New Jersey State Trooper and decided he was going to do whatever she told him to do so someday he could run the state police or somewhere else. And guess what? That worked out. I affectionately call her Aunt Ro.
That's her dad.
And yep. And what a great picture, Ro. How does that make you feel? When you see that's that legendary patch. And I know he wouldn't allow you to come to Newark. And of course you went to the state police, and as my brother would say, that's the more prestigious outfit. But Sunday dinners, your brother-in-law, Monty, was a captain, a narcotics guy. I mean, so the table was full of cops at the table, like all of us.
Yep. So true. And, regarding your brother, he went kicking and screaming every time I tried to transfer him to, educate him about the different things other than knocking doors down or, jumping in a lake to find a gun or something like that. But he took every assignment and he went and he did a great job. And I'm so proud of him. And, our families have a great history together. I mean, you and I are still friends and we'll always be friends. But our family started that and we're carrying that tradition on, I mean, can I tell the story about your dad and my dad?
I was going to tell, but you tell it. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the funniest.
Well, yours is probably a lot more colorful, but I'll just tell the truth. So what happened was Tommy's dad was applying for the Newark Police Department. I guess my dad was in some kind of position where he was deciding on the recruits, but Tommy's dad wasn't tall enough. I think the height requirement then was 5'9".
No,
but my dad
no,
for some reason,
you're being
what?
nice to him. It was 5'7", and he wasn't even 5'7".
Right, and Ben didn't wear heels then, so
That's right. Unless you were Italian. All right, just had to get that in there. Italian, surrounded. But go ahead.
So my dad took a liking to him, said he was, really outstanding. You could see he'd be a good cop. So my dad told him, stuff some stuff in your shoes and come back next week for the next part of the test. And all of a sudden, your dad was 5'11".
And that is a great row. That is so true, a true story. And that man who wasn't tall enough to get on the job wound up being the first bomb technician of the city of Newark.
Right.
Your dad went on to be chief. My dad went on to be commander and then police chief and police director. They took him in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. And his son Eddie did all right. And I was the rebel of the family. But, my father never forgot that your father gave him that chance.
Yeah.
And I remember going to picnics when your dad was in his 80s. My father was still saluting your father, still calling him chief. And they were still telling that damn story every year. And they both did all right.
And we're fortunate. We had good dads. I'm sure everybody here did. Strict dads, but good dads. And my Uncle John retired as a lieutenant. My brother-in-law Bobby was a captain, and RJ's a sergeant over at Kane University, and Frankie retired as a major in the state police. So just a very, very proud family. And
So to all of the viewers out there, if you drop the name Manghese, you're probably going to be okay.
You're okay. You're okay.
So Joseph Cosentino is saying on Facebook that thank you for being a part of this broadcast, Joe. Great representation of the Newark Police Department. Tommy, Jerry Knapp, and my G Unit sidekick, Chris. God bless you all.
Joe was a hell of a cop, hell of a narcotics, and also one hell of a softball player. That was important for me and Knapp and the rest of the guys. I'm going to do a
Rob Monty. This is amazing.
Oh, that's my nephew.
Yeah, that's his nephew.
That's RJ.
Yeah,
that's RJ.
That's RJ. RJ was now for the audience. Ro and I worked. Not only she came to Newark as a trooper, and the state police were working in Newark, and we worked together. But then we worked together for electronic chain. Nobody beats the Wiz. And then when you retired, we worked together at InfoCop. And then we moved on and we went to work for our great company, Bola Rap. So you were always my first call and always my right arm. But I have to introduce, although I said we're going to do a solo for 20 minutes at the end, I met this man a couple years ago through one of our, Amory's I don't know. She's like family to us right now. We met her.
She's lovely.
She's lovely, right, Ricky?
She loves us in New Jersey because it's like a completely different culture to her. We took her to Newark. We gave her a tour of Newark, and she met the one and only Jerry Knapp. And she sat next to Jerry Knapp, and she could not even believe. She said, I can't do the accent quite right, but she's like, we're eating at picnic tables. This is lovely. This is the best food I can't do it. This is the best food I've ever had.
Well, Amory is an award-winning pioneer in the music.
We showed her jersey.
We showed her jersey, and she introduced Ricky and I and Robin because she is a writer and writing Ricky's life story. And for whatever reason, she wants to write about the Setners, which she's wrote that story. So we're Ricky and I met, and we've become brothers. And this man is, I would embarrass him if I talked about his heroics. But this man served not only his city of LA County as a sheriff. He then went and fought in Afghanistan, Iraq, parts unknown. I'll leave it at that. When Bush 41 decided to send our cops over there and teach other countries and fight. He's been stabbed. He's been shot. He's survived cancer. He's fighting battles. And what does he do? I'm going to wake up, since I don't have a gun and badge anymore, and I'm going to be a founder of the Spirit of the Law Enforcement Ministries. Welcome, my brother. You're an amazing man. I met you late in life. We've developed a brotherhood like no other over the last couple of years through Amory. I don't need to talk much more about you because they'll be seeing you on the big screen TV someday, and that'll probably embarrass you. But tell us, my friend, how it feels to have your daughter working in LA in one of the finest police departments in the country.
I was very fortunate to work under Sheriff Sherman Block, and first I want to say I'm really humbled to be on your show with these incredible men and women in law enforcement. It is a humbling experience, and Bobby and Robin, you are the cutest, most adorable, funny couple I ever met. You're like a modern Ricky.
That's because you don't know her that well. You don't live with her over here. So I'm constantly getting verbally abused here.
And you haven't listened to his stories every day.
Yeah, but everybody else has. But John, Ricky, and we're going to spend, because we're going to get to what this ministry is doing for people. We're going to get to what you're doing now and what we're going to do. And I know everybody on this program today is not only going to appreciate it, they're going to be wowed by it. And somehow, like I always do, I'll be picking up the phone to ask them to help out with it. But Johnny, growing up with this monster of a man, although a teddy bear, he had hands like, Shaquille O'Neal, our friend Shaquille O'Neal. And if there was reason to effect the arrest and use the necessary force, you wanted Detective Avalon on your team, and it was just one happy little slap, and that got everybody's attention. How hard was it, John, growing up with this legend? Because I know you were not allowed to come to Newark either. He wasn't going to allow it.
No, he didn't let me come to Newark. I had my heart set on going to Newark, and he was totally against it. So we ended up in South Brunswick. Again, great PD. I had a very good time there. It wasn't hard growing up with him. He was a very great dad, all about family. At every football game, every softball game for my sister, every sport, he was always there. As a matter of fact, how many times do you guys pull up in the radio car, supposedly picking up a prisoner down in Ocean County?
Hold on, because I don't know if the statute of limitations, but I guess I'll share one story. And John's sister went on a date, and back then it was only beepers. And that night it was just me and Bobby and Jay. And Bobby's family lived 80 miles from 80 miles. So not only did we have to drive through 5 counties, we weren't allowed to leave our city. But we got a call from John's mom and said Renee was upset the date didn't go too well. Next thing I know, we had the little red bubble on top of the unmarked car doing 100 miles per hour in a Chevy, 80 miles away, just running people off the road because whatever Bobby got in his head that the date didn't go well, that kid at 16 was going to pay for his sins that night. And yeah, put that up. And it was there's Bobby on the end and far, I don't know, next to my brother, I'll put it that way, in the orange tie. Handsome Marine. But we went down, and next thing you know, we're not only out of county, we're basically almost out of the state. And Bobby decided to take that 16-year-old kid for a ride with us to have a talk with him. But the ride went too far. We brought him all the way back to Newark, New Jersey. And then we had to plead with Bobby to put him on the bus all the way back to Toms River. But these were the things we did. Bobby was always about family first. And,
yes, he was.
And country. But, man, it was about his partners. Here's a picture of us, the three amigos. We look like the band. We look like the Four Seasons with Frankie Valli. It was at a wedding. Either that or we're waiters. Maybe I should just say we were waiters working undercover that night.
That you were in somebody's wedding? Or
yeah,
was that your wedding?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't my wedding.
How do I know that? I don't know.
No, it was
because he's smiling.
Yeah, because very good, Emerald. Very good. But hey, Chris, what's one of your favorite stories you could share with us with your dad? When you came on the job, or was it when you wanted to come on the job, or him telling you what to do all the time or circling your report in red like my father used to do?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying you tipped your hand earlier. Now I know where my father got all those electronics from. They must have been from the Wiz.
I didn't.
He used to tell me he bought them. But now I know how I got all the top electronics that the Wiz had to offer. Thank you for that.
The Widows and Orphan Fund.
It was
but,
Santa Claus.
yeah, it was Santa Claus.
Listen, where can I go with my father? I mean, you would need a show just on that. But I will start off by saying he is my true hero even to this day. I still do things, make decisions based on how I feel he would react to my decision. So that's a powerful statement for somebody that's 47 years old. I had an interesting dynamic. I started when I was 20. He came on the job in 73. So by 85, I heard all these names that we're talking about tonight. Jerry Knapp, your family, the Donlins, every name you said was like been in my life for the last 30 years. So I got to see it from a kid growing up all the way to now. We're still talking about these same names, and that goes to say a lot for policing in Newark and policing in New Jersey. And I've been very honored to be a part of it. I mean, I never had a bad day growing up with a father like mine. Some funny stories, though, I can relate to talking about Avalon and his son. My father used to come to the games with the whole homicide division. And I remember specifically one time, first play of the game, my senior year, we were all highly touted. Everybody was coming to watch us. And I blew out my elbow on the first play of the game, and I'm getting carted off the field. And to this day, we laugh about it, but I think probably why I need counseling. I look over to him for support, and he goes like this, like I embarrassed him, with all his friends there, his family, my family, and I'm getting carted off, and he gives me one of these things like this, like I brought everybody here for nothing. So as much as I got the tough love, I got good love in the same breath. So that always rings a bell to me. And then some of the funny things, like most normal families, I grew up in North Arlington. And most normal families have wedding pictures around and family pictures. I would come home to autopsy photos and, different crime scenes that he loved that homicide. He still does to this day. He used to tell me, and it's cliche now because you hear it, but he was saying this back in the 80s and 90s. He would get a call and he'd be gone for 3-4 days, hitting the streets, before technology and before all this stuff, looking for the people that did this. And he would say the voiceless have no voice to speak. We have to speak for them. So as a family, we took a back seat to him speaking for the voices that couldn't speak any longer. And I always remembered that. He was an advocate for the victim. And to this day, he still talks about the cases that he didn't solve. And these are things I grew up hearing, and the stories that made me proud to be a Newark cop and just be in law enforcement in general. And it's an honor to be on a panel like this. And thank you for all sharing your story. But it makes me feel like I did something right along the way, that I'm asked to be on these things and I'm carrying on the traditions of the old timers. And the last thing I'll say is that your generation, and when I say your generation, I just retired, Mr. Avalon just retired. We try to carry on the traits that you guys are doing now. And, the sad part is there's not many left. The generation of cops now aren't doing this. I'm lucky enough to be a part of a dinner. We get together once a month, and the guys are getting older and older. And once these stories go, it's up to us, the younger generation, to carry them on. So I love hearing your stories. I'll carry them on forever, and I'll honor everybody that's come across my path. And it's due to your generation and them years of law enforcement where cops were really cops.
Well, you and John wore a badge of courage. I don't know if we deserve the kudos your dad does and John's dad, Bobby, does. And we all tried to do the right thing, but we learned from the Mr. Manghese and Mr. Setner and Mr. Inio, and these were legendary figures. And we would never step out of line. Jared, when we went to the party last week, I told you the story. The last time was the first time I had been back. Dad passed 6 years ago, and he looked forward to these picnics and these parties. And I used to make fun of him a little bit. And finally, he would call me and say, "Are you going to the SOA party?" And I would say, "I'm not going to that." He's like, "What?" And he would call me a piece of and hang up on me. And finally, one day, I thought, my mother called me. She never got involved. She said, "You just want you to go with them." And I felt bad. So then for years, I would pick him up and his partners, because they didn't drive anymore, and I would drive them. And our last year at the table, unfortunately, he had cancer and he had some health problems. We didn't think he was going anywhere, but he felt like it was going to be his last year. And at that table, 93, 90, 88, he was the youngest at 79. The stories were all the same but better. But at one point, I'll never forget this. The 93-year-old said, "I got to go take a leak," and the 90-year-old said, "I'll take you." And the 88-year-old said, "Why?" He said, "He's my partner." He said, "You can imagine, you're going to hold it for him too?" He said, "If I got it, he's my partner." And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. After 60 years, these guys were still looking out for each other, you know? And you, Jerry, created the same memories so much that a daughter and a son went on the job. What's your favorite moment that you could recall with them? Forget what you did. What did they do?
There's so many too. I don't know where to start, but I'm just proud of them because they're following their heart, not mine. They wanted to do what they wanted to do, and I never said no to them. I always said, "Do what you got to do," and I'm behind you 100%. A couple of my daughters a little afraid. She's in fact, she met her husband in the drug tunnel in Mexico when the door. So that's it's kind of one of my favorite things. Yeah, it was great, and my son, he's like me when I first came on. So
wait, what?
What?
So back up.
Well, my daughter worked for the DEA.
Okay.
And my son-in-law works for the Homeland Security, and they're doing a joint raid in a drug tunnel, and on the border of Mexico and Arizona, and that's where they met, and they got married like a couple years after that.
That's a love story.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And my son, he's just like me when I grew up, Tom. Remember we used to take him to. Remember he was pitching and catching, and we said, "T, I got to take him to Seton Hall." I said, "Well, put him in the car. We'll pick him up, and we'll take him and watch him practice." This is, I can't
part of a narcotics investigation. We had to go up there to the baseball academy and make sure that there was nothing going on wrong.
He was like me. He had to learn on his own, but he got slapped around a couple of times, and then he said, "Okay, you're right, Dad. Yeah, I know I'm right because I've been there, done that."
Yeah.
But he turned around a lot. He did the 360. He's doing good now, and he's got 16 years on already. So,
Nap, what's the temperature in the Napolitano family about you getting back in and you're running for sheriff because you open up
200%.
And it's just you'll take a beating for no reason, but you're that guy that never sat on the sidelines. You didn't complain. If you're going to do something, raise your hand and go do it. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I know they're behind you, right? They're just loving this.
Every one of them. They just can't wait for it to start and get going and, put my feet on the ground. Me, T, I'm going to hit the doors. And, got an uphill battle, but I'm going to win, I think.
We love uphill battles.
Yeah.
Uphill battles. First women's class. We had you on the show with Deb. Back in your day, Ro, you had this unbelievable father. Your sister married, a highly decorated narcotics cop. Your Uncle John, legend also on the Newark Police Department, your father's brother. And you go on to state police in the all-female class, and you go out there, and a lot of the guys didn't want you, and they didn't back you up. And you're on these highways in the pitch dark, pulling over some of the worst people in the world, and maybe need a backup, and nobody showed up. You got through it. Most of you women did. Shame on them guys. Does that sound Jersey? Shame on them guys. But man, you set the groundwork for the Devin D'Amicos and the female leaders in our state, in our country. And I know from being with you for 40 years, how many of your friends are now running departments. And I think I was a member of NORLI, was I not, Rose?
Yes, you are a paying member. You were paying of the National Association of Women Law Enforcement.
I was, and I used to like to go to the conventions. But they
was anybody's name Lauren?
Nobody's name was.
Nope. I know all the names. They're tattooed right here.
Ro, when you came home to Dad in the beginning, what was that conversation, or to your brother-in-law? What was that conversation like? Did you ever get frustrated and be like, God?
No, my dad was a good man, and he set a great example, and it shows. It shows in, my nephew RJ, my cousin Frank, and, he set that example for us, and everybody, has a high likeness to him and what he did. But I took the test for Newark PD, but then they weren't hiring. So when they started, they needed women in the state police because of a consent decree. I took the test and my father was like, "Oh no, you're not going to the state police." I said, "Why? They have so many opportunities. They're hiring women. Newark's not hiring now." I took the test and he gave me the old, he's like, "They screwed up the riots." So I said, "What?" So he said, "Those troopers, they never fought in the war. They never went to college, and they came into my city and shot it up. They never accounted for their shotgun shells." So I was like, I had no idea. So during the Newark riots, I was 12 years old. It was 1969, right? 67, 69. And, we lived on a dead end street. My dad was gone all the time. He wanted us to go stay at my grandparents'. And so I went downstairs in the basement. I got one of his guns, one of his BB guns, and I started patrolling the neighborhood because I thought that's what I had to do because my dad was, at the riot. So, of course, a patrol car came by and the Lamadas lived on the corner, right? Lou Lamada.
Yes.
And they came and they're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, my dad's at work and there's riots, so I have to patrol. I have to patrol the street." So they took me home. My father was like, "What the hell were you doing?" So he said, "Maybe you'd be a cop someday." But every week when I was in the academy, because we're a residential academy, I'd come home on the weekend and my dad would say, "You're never going to finish." So for 26 weeks, he berated me every weekend. So now it became like game on.
Yeah.
So,
I two things that pop up to me and make me think about after your story. The first one is that you're patrolling the neighborhood with a BB gun, and
She was a good shot.
I think back to the days of when there was community policing, where you would just be taken home from the neighbor and saying, "Get out of here, go home. You can't be doing that," versus what it's like today, and I miss that feeling of community because you simply just can't. And I wonder if that hinders people that want to go into law enforcement because it's just, you go in, obviously, all of you with the same heart to want to help, right? And because it's clearly not about the money when you first go in. And I feel for the younger generation of today, even in education, but especially in law enforcement, because the stories I hear of what you were just telling me and the endless stories that I hear about his father, and even on a smaller scale, it wasn't Newark, but it was still a suburb and a wonderful community that my father, God rest his soul, went to go protect and serve every day. And he was able to do certain things that changed the trajectory of people's lives. For instance, if someone down the street was caught kind of doing something bad, he could take that kid and walk him right up to his father's house and say, "You take care of this kid," versus having to take him to jail, because of a camera or whatever the rules are now. So that's the first thing that strikes me. And I wanted to talk to the panel about that because the question would be, I know that thematically and in your heart
nobody on the committee knows the definition of thematically.
Well, I know.
No, I'm speaking for myself.
I know as a theme, you all went into law enforcement for a calling and or maybe a family obligation and love to follow in your, and I wonder if you're going to answer it honestly, but I do have this looming question. Would you do it all over again if you had to do it right now?
For free. For free for me. I do it for free all over.
Well, you're a public servant, that's one thing my dad always instilled in us. You're a public servant. Don't ever forget that. You serve the public. Right. So yeah, I probably would do it again now because it became something that became a part of your life. It's not who I was, but it's what I did. And I enjoyed my job. And, being the first woman, I know we always get tagged with that, which was was an honor. But, you know, all my mentors were men. You know, when I came on the job, my coach, Jimmy Walsh, he was a phenomenal person and a great coach, but all my mentors were men. So that's something that I'll never forget, all the men that I worked with, because that's all there were. You know, there was only 30 women in my class, so kind of hard. But, you know, it was a great career, and I would do it again.
Well, that was the second thing that I wanted to, and we had you on the show before, and I was blown away by your, was it partner, Deb, where they were in the same class.
Yeah, and partners at the time.
And I was blown away because the trailblazing and the strength that you must have had to go through when women were not treated as equals, and I still, you know, can question if we are even now. But, you know, I just think it's, from a woman's perspective, I just think it's so wonderful that you trailblazed, and now you are a mentor for a woman. You know, now the women in the classes that are coming up, now they don't have just men as mentors.
Right.
They have women law enforcement officers and superior officers, and I think that's great. And if I had a daughter, which I don't, but if I did,
well, this is becoming The View right now, so enough with you women.
Well, if we were The View, it would be a different conversation.
I mean, enough already. But Chris, yes or no? You do it all over again?
You know, I don't know. It's tough to say. I think we'd have to reprogram and rewire our brains. I mean, we came up in a different era. And, you know, speaking of mentors, we were trained and mentored by people that were already doing it for many years. And we were taught one way, which I don't think, you know, adapts in today's society and policing. So it'd be hard. It would be hard. We'd have to reprogram, relearn, you know, the way we were taught. But if I was to take it on face value, it's the best career you could have. It's the most rewarding career you could have. It's the most tradition of any profession in the world, where you could have a bond wherever you go. You could be anywhere in the world, and if you run into another cop, you have an instant bond. So I don't know if you could get that anywhere else. So that's the part that I would love to recreate, and the part I miss now. Me and Tom have some off-the-air conversations where I talk about the tough transition from being a cop. That's the only job I've ever had. And now I'm in the private sector. I've only had one job in my life. I started when I was 20. I just retired, and now I'm in the private sector. And it's tough chasing that adrenaline and thrill of saying I'm a Newark police officer. So, yeah, I would do it again, probably just for that. Now, whether I'd make it, that's a different story.
Well, speaking of that, the legends weighing in. Mr. Juvo, your dad himself. Tommy, thank you for the kind words. And, hey, Knapp, looking good. I think we got our guy that's going to be in charge of homicide when you go to the sheriff's department.
He would love that.
Before I get to Ricky, John, you know, it's tough when you got dads on the job, whether it be Ro, Chris, or me, or now role reversal for Jerry and Ricky. You know, my father used one of the proudest days, I posted this about a few weeks ago, was my oldest daughter was born, Samantha, and it was his first grandchild, and I was a dad for the first time, and he held her and I held her. Back then it was different, and he said, walk with me to the elevator, and he was dressed in his jacket and tie, and I used to call him Stipowitz from NYPD. It was the summer. He had the short sleeve dress shirt with a tie on. But we get to the elevator, and he hands me a detective's badge and said, you're in part of the elite narcotics unit now. You report tomorrow. You're working for with Avalon and the DuPont. Don't you know what up? And of course, then he would later become my captain. So not only did I have to answer to my father, I had to answer to my captain. And I loved every minute of it. When you went on the job, your father, man, he used to do the New York Times crossword puzzle every day. So I knew who wrote your reports too. And so how was it like to have Pop?
You know what? The benefit that we had is I had an education in police work before I went to the police academy.
Okay.
So I had to step above everybody else that I came on the job with. And not only did I have an education, but I had education from a Newark cop. It was one of the best.
Yep.
So yes, there were many nights where, you know, it hit the fan and I would pick up the phone and I would say, hey, how do I write this? And
without being there. Without being there, he knew how to write that
He
report.
knew how to write it, man. He did. He knew how to write it. And that education that I got before I even went on a job made me that much better of a cop. But that education that I got is not the police work of today.
Yeah, no.
So it's a much different job now. And that education that he gave me probably wouldn't get me too far today.
But you know what? You can't buy that education, and
No.
that goes for everybody in this. I learned from Knapp. Ricky, I was going to do this, but I want to keep.
What'd you learn from Knapp?
What did I learn from Knapp?
Yeah.
He's not allowed to say.
And not be said.
I learned this. We had a softball team throughout the city, and I thought I was working one night, and they told me I had to go from the north to the east, and I was working 4 to 12. That my partner for that night would pick me up. Well, that was Jerry Knapp, sporting goods store, dressed me and said, Captain O'Connor of the East District said you could work in the north, but you're playing softball for the east. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we played for softball down on Ann Street on the tar. And where did we go afterwards to drink? I don't know, but I never went back to work. I knew that.
With the taxpayers' money.
With the taxpayers' money.
Now we're talking The View.
But,
Now we're on The View.
Ricky, we've all been there, shot at, you name it. Your career, again, one of the most violent counties, cities in America. You took it to a different level. You took a leave because our government asked you to and went and served our country. You've seen it all, my friend. You did it all. You paid for it all in so many ways. But now, tell us about how you created this, what you're doing for our brothers and sisters, and what we're going to do in 23 and 2024.
Okay. The Spirit of Law Awards was started. I grew up, my grandpa was a preacher and my dad was a preacher. And the thing that fascinated me most about the Bible was when Jesus talked about the Good Samaritan, and all he did was say, go and do likewise. He didn't say anything about the Good Samaritan, and he helped out a Jew and Samaritan, and the Jews would get along. And that always stuck with me as a kid. So when I was in the Sheriff's Academy, Lance Harper, my DI, says, you know the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law? No, I didn't. He explained to me. And I thought, you know what? Every cop I've ever met, and I started seeing it, LA County, you go from the academy straight to the jail. You got to do a couple of years before you go out anyway. And I saw firsthand a senior deputy named Lee Mayfield. And when young kids came in, county jail, we worked the inmate reception, so we crossed everybody came in. We had about 10, 15 fights every shift because people were just angry coming in. But he saw the scared kids. He saw the drunks come in, and he would take them aside and sold them with a sandwich and extra coffee. They were just screaming. So the Spirit of Law always stuck with me, and every day I looked at the police officers that brought them in from different cities, and I saw the Marines, MPs, when they come and pick up the Marines. And everybody that served, it was a matter of their heart. It wasn't about the money. I think we made $27,000 a year back then. And I saw something special in law enforcement. So in 1983, I wrote the first letter to Lee Mayfield, and I called it the Spirit of Law Awards letter. And I was very specific on why I wanted to recognize him. So it got out, and I started getting calls and letters from chiefs of police in the LA area, Orange County area, saying, hey, would you write a letter for this guy or this officer, and this is why. And it just kind of grew. And in the last couple of years, we have 27,000 nominations.
And we're now taking that to a different level where I know, because Rob and I have joined the team, and we're looking for property out in Texas. Almost, if you ever heard our listeners and watchers of the Imus Ranch, where kids that were stricken with cancer could go and have a few wishes. You have formulated a plan for cops when they need to clear their head or maybe take a break from it all, they're going to be able to go to an amazing place, get the help they need, talk to the people they need to. So you're still saving lives. I'm sure you get the same thrill, if not more, than crashing through a door and getting a bad guy. And then I know we're closing down on 12 minutes. I want you to share your thoughts, but I got to tell you, we got a connection. You and Ricky have a connection I want to share. But Ricky, how's that feel to go from the level all over the country, all over the world, and then you're going to go and get this unbelievable ranch and take this to the next level? What made you think of that?
When I was active, my wife died of breast cancer. And, she wasn't a cop. She didn't die in the line of duty. But I remember my 9-year-old daughter, she was going through. She said, Dad, if one more person comes up to me and says, hey, it's going to be okay, I'm just going to scream. So I took her away for a couple of weeks, and I just doted on her and just did fun things with her. And in recent years, we've had more police officers killed in the line of duty than any time in history. It just baffles me. It never gets any recognitions. The families struggle. They just struggle desperately. And then when September 11th happened, and I witnessed the cancer from after September 11th, it just hit my heart. And I remember at the time, I said, you know what? We need to create a ranch where the families of officers and firefighters killed in the line of duty can come in and just be loved on for 10 days. What are your dreams? Let's take them out in nature. Let's get them out of the cities where they're from. Let's just take them on horseback rides, do barbecues in the pits, take them to a local concert. And that's where the idea came out. And after talking with you, and talking with a couple of chiefs of police and a couple of sheriffs, there's a lot of officers shot in the line of duty and injured, and they're disabled now. And we wanted to have a time where the officers in this nation and their families can come when they're disabled, and we can work with them. We can get the experts to come in. If they need a canine, get them a canine, PTSD. If they need wheelchairs, better wheelchairs, get them the wheelchairs. I see what they're doing for our United States military, and God bless them for doing that, for those brave men and women. But people aren't how many.
On a lighter note, I know who we're going to have come and take care of all the horses, since he's missing that and he's still training. But,
I'll do it for free.
It's an unbelievable mission. It's already a success, and I'm proud to be part of it. And so is Robin, and we're going to help try to take it to the next level. Ro, I get a call from this man, and he said, when I was abroad and we were fighting and teaching and blah, 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 and undercover over there, I don't know if you know this New Jersey State Trooper. And I said, you worked with a New Jersey State Trooper? He said, yeah, well, we trained Dave Buhan, Mr. Dave Buhan.
Yeah.
How's that for us?
I know he was on the Parkway.
I know. And our left fielder for the State Police South softball team, which I tell you takes priority. Oh, he was one hell of a.
Explains why he was not at work a lot. Yep.
He had his own. We had batting practice, just like when we took Jerry's kid. Guys, whether it was on the job, and I know you all missed the job, Johnny. I remember being almost like 21 Jump Street in your house. You were 10 years, 12 years younger than me. Your dad was that age, the age difference the other way. I was in between. I remember coming to your house. You would ask me questions and I would tell you, and you would get so pumped up. Your father would slap me. Don't tell him that. I don't need him listening to what we did and all that. Those war stories. Then when we worked, your father ran the largest electronic chain. Nobody beats the Wiz. Ro was a Wiz kid. I was a Wiz kid. You started, that was your first job before you became a cop. I think.
Yeah, because that would happen today.
I think I missed the stories the most. I missed the men, but I never thought I would say this. I missed the stories. I liked looking at you and going to Chris's high school basketball game. I was 10 years older, but I was like going to your football games, John, 80 miles away in the unmarked car, saying that an informant told us that there was drugs coming up from the Jersey Shore. And 4 hours later, the lieutenant would say, "Who won?" You know, he knew exactly
I
what
could
we were
just,
doing.
I
You know?
could just picture your father.
Yeah.
Dad, I'm hurt.
My poor father. But guys, you
I
know,
love it.
the Newark Police, Newark State, the New Jersey State Police. You know, we were detailed, all of us, to different federal agencies. Every one of us worked task forces, you know, and there isn't nothing like your brothers and sisters that you went to the academy with. Your father's saying, Jugo, we had the best crew in the narcotics. The characters we worked with were nuts. I don't think you could sum it up any better than that. And
I grew up watching Bugman come over for dinner. If who don't know Bugman, I could go on for a show on stories just with the name alone.
I heard that story.
And Bugman was your father's unbelievable part. Every word out of his mouth is, "It's bogus." He would tell a judge. The judge would say, "That's enough, detective. You're bogus, judge." The stories are countless.
You're going to the box. That was another one. You're going to the box.
And he was a Vietnam veteran, a legend, tunnel rat also. You couldn't learn enough from these guys. His brother, Rocco, God rest his soul, took care of all of us. Rocco was smarter and wasn't nuts, but had more you-know-whats than any of us did. But thank you for all coming on tonight. I could speak to each one of you for hours at a time. I wanted to pick my favorite people to be on. I wanted Chris, I never got the honor of working with you, but I watched you grow up, man. And John, we shared suit jackets, for God's sake. At one time, you were my size. Now you're a monster like your father. Ricky, man, you're making a difference. You know, I always say when you leave this earth, you just want somebody to say, "You're making a difference. You're making a difference." And Sheriff, I love you. I'll see you this week.
You
We're
got
going to
it.
still change things. And sis, nobody's ever had my back like you. Nobody.
Thank you. And what a great tribute to all the women and men in law enforcement today on Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So
And the last thing I'll
Salute.
say before we go out,
He was going to say it in Polish.
I lost a brother. He was in my wedding, a retired Captain Dennis Cronin from Old Bridge. Another man. I loved him. I grew up with him. Joe Bruno, MPD. Willie Rivera, MPD. You know, sometimes these holidays, it's terrible. And then we got Bobby Decker fighting for his life, our good buddy Bobby Decker. So Godspeed to all these guys. And God bless you guys. I loved all your fathers. I loved working with you all. And I still do. I still get to do this. So, Nastarovya.
Oh, Chindan.
My father would say, a shot and a beer. I wish you all the best. And we're going to go off with a tribute. My wife wrote it, and her beautiful voice is singing it. So,
Oh, yeah, this is great. And I'll make a plug for my company, Platinum Group Security. Thank you.
It was an honor. It was an honor to be asked to be on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it.
all right, guys. Appreciate you all.
Play your song, Robin.
When the moment comes for us to say goodbye, don't feel all alone. I don't want you to cry. Just please try to remember how happy you made me, and smile, because I'm free. Remember all the good, and know I tried my best. The fighting all meant nothing, and all the yelling were just tests that we always passed, and I always won. And now I'm shining down on you just like the sun. So smile, because I'm telling you to. Smile, because that's what you should do. we'll see you again. Just smile. Smile, my love. Don't cry, my love, until we meet again. You'll be in my heart, no matter time or place. The love I feel for you, no one will replace. So think of the last and think of the fun. And now I'm standing beside you. My life has just begun. Just one more thing before the song is through. I'm up here with someone special who says he loves you too. We knew right away when I first saw his face. You'll take care of me now. He'll take your place. And he wants me to tell you to smile, because we're telling you to smile, because that's what you should do. Just smile, because we'll see you again. Just smile. Smile, my love. Don't cry, my love. Just smile. Don't cry. Just smile, my love, until we meet again.
Salute you guys. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Very good.
Appreciate you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Carry on.